This video is to look at, so now that we've learned about how hard it is to be a parent when you're a trauma survivor, what can we do to make our help for trauma survivors as effective as possible? Again, we're looking at information from the Parenting Resources Handbook, and we're looking at what's unique about survivor parents that makes things hard for them, and what about that should influence how we offer services. It's first important to start by acknowledging that parenting is a difficult task. It's a difficult task for anyone. And there's sort of a myth that there's a perfect parent who knows it all and knows exactly what to do and is always there for their child. There is not such a perfect parent. Time and again, research has shown that you don't have to be a perfect parent to raise good kids. In fact, Bruno Bettelheim coined the phrase, the good enough parent, because there's many ways to be a parent, and most of them are just fine. There's the possibility of many mistakes, many missteps, and still raise a good, solid, secure person. We have to, in our approach to parents, we have to recognize the many levels of barriers that they face. First of all, as I said, there's just the basic difficulty of the task. Many parents that we work with on top of that are facing other barriers of poverty, racism, mental health issues. They certainly may have problem even meeting the physical needs of the child. So they may have trouble getting enough money for diapers, for food. They may have food insecurity. Many parents also that we work with are working at jobs that are not that flexible and do not appreciate their employees taking time off to go to an appointment, have real danger of losing their job if they try to make appointments for their kids. I say this because oftentimes providers make appointments for families and just don't take into account their work schedules. Furthermore, sometimes parents who are parenting kids with mental health problems have several kids that are in treatment, 2 or 3 kids that are in treatment, often in different places, and the parent is actually expected to go to all those places for treatment. Not only is it physically difficult with everything else they have to do, but also they can often hear conflicting advice and be pulled in many directions. So we have to be realistic and understand what it's really like to be this parent. An example is that we had a program in which a kid was, it's a day program in which a kid was really acting up and tearing the program apart. The staff were very frustrated, and they were trying to work with the mother, and they told the mother that when the kid has a bad day at school, you should keep that kid from watching TV that night. Well, she wasn't doing this, and so they were frustrated with her and felt like she didn't care and wasn't working with them. They didn't give a moment to think about what is this person's life like. She had 3 children and a job. She comes home from the job and has to make dinner and meet the needs of these children. The last thing she wants is for the child not to watch TV. She needs the child to watch TV so she can make it through the night and do the tasks that she has to do. Nor does she need the big fight that would ensue if she tried to get him not to watch TV. A moment's thought about her situation led to a different approach and a way of allying with her, where the program took care of its own behavior problems, and they found ways to ally with the mom because they both did have the same goals, which was a happy life for the child. Needless to say, we have to be trauma-informed in our services, which means that we have to understand that the relationship is our vehicle of change, that forming a relationship with parents is how they're going to change. There's no other way. In fact, we want to have a relationship with the parents that models the relationship we hope they have with their children. The parent needs to be taken care of in order for them to have any stamina or energy to take care of their own children. We have to understand that safety is a prerequisite for any type of engagement and certainly for any types of learning. So where is our office located? Is it a place that's hard for the parent to get to? Do we have a lot of security precautions? They may make the parent safer, or they may make the parent feel like a criminal. What interaction does the parent have with other clients? How safe and welcoming and kind does our environment feel? The receptionist plays a big part here. How welcoming is she? So all the ambiance around our appointments are crucial in setting the stage for an actual helpful appointment. If it's a program in which a child is, whether it's a school, whether it's a day program, whether it's a residential or a hospital, the parent is concerned about the safety of their child. You may know that you're good people, but the parent sees things on the news every night about people in positions of authority abusing children. So if the parent is demanding or asking a lot of questions, we have to understand that as love. And again, look at what is beneath the parent's actions, that every behavior makes sense. Which leads us into the fact that we want to greet parents with the same lens that we bring toward their kids. Sometimes it's easier to look at a trauma-informed lens for a child, and then we end up getting mad at the parents. We have to bring the trauma-informed lens to the parent too. The parent is a trauma survivor and often has had no help, and often has maybe even never told anyone about what's happening to them. So we have to understand that how the parent is acting makes sense. It's adaptive. It's the best way they know to get their needs met. We can't make judgments about them and assume that we know why they're acting the way they are. For example, I worked with a woman who had 5 children, and she wouldn't come to school meetings about her children. So the staff was judgmental towards her and leaping to the conclusion that she just didn't care. When I talked about it further with her, she said, if I go to those meetings, they don't listen to me. They just do whatever they're going to do and tell me what it's going to be. If I don't go to them, they just tell me what they're going to do. It makes no difference if I go, so I'm not going to go. So the woman had not felt respected at the meeting. She had not felt like she had a voice. So she gave up on going. It wasn't that she didn't care about her child. That was not it at all, which brings us to being collaborative and empowering. It's our job to help the client have a voice. A lot of the meetings that we have about children that we invite their parents to are very overwhelming and difficult. Plus, as professionals, we often talk in jargon and we use initials, we use acronyms that the parent doesn't understand and doesn't feel comfortable asking about. So we have to think about that and change how we talk. We have to make sure the parent is really with us and that whatever they have to say, we're listening. And we have to make sure that the parent is actually at all the meetings. That phrase, never about me without me, we should be our motto, that we don't have meetings about a family and make decisions without hearing their voice. So our work with parents involves teaching, and we want to teach them skills both for themselves to use and for them to teach their children, such as emotional management skills, how to recognize emotions, especially when they're small, when they're first starting to happen, how to name them, how to get through difficult times without making them worse. DBT can be a great help here, dialectic behavioral therapy. Even if you don't do the full program, which is great, they have specific emotion management skills that you can use to teach people. We also have to share information about normal child development and how children often act at different stages. Maybe the thing that the parent is worried about is actually a very normal developmental stage. As we talked before, we need to work on effective skills of discipline, of teaching, of guiding your children and not using fear, but using love as the tool for change. And then it's very important to teach people about trauma, how it affects people and how they heal. You can be teaching a parent this for their child so that they understand what their child has been through, if their child has experienced a trauma, how it's affecting them. But more than once I've had parents say, I wish someone had told me this about my own trauma. I wish people had known this when I was a child. So what we teach the parent about their child's trauma also helps the parent see their own trauma in a new light. It's very helpful for people to know that the symptoms related from trauma, such as hypervigilance and flashbacks and dissociation and being overly reactive to certain stimulus, that's very normal, and that's well known to be the human response to trauma. Sometimes it's helpful to talk about the experience of soldiers and how soldiers are when they come back from war. Somehow that's easier for people to see maybe than trauma that occurs in the home. I remember one of my clients, I was showing her a book which is called The Courage to Heal, that was about healing from sexual trauma, and she was reading the normal reaction to having been sexually molested, and she said, I'm in a book. I can't believe it. I'm in a book. It was so amazing to her to learn that there were others who had felt this way, enough others that it was well known and was actually, of course, another way of achieving that goal of helping people understand trauma and how it affects people and to feel more normal is through groups, if people can have a chance to talk to each other about their experiences. Part of how we help people is through crisis planning. That is, thinking about how to handle crises before they happen. So we want to look at what sort of things tend to cause crisis in this family. What are some of the times, the type of tasks, the type of situations that tend to bring us into crisis? What are the early signs that people in this family are getting upset? What do we notice in the child? What do we notice in the parent? And then what are several levels of things we can do? So we want to start with some things we can do when we first start to get upset. What are ways we can distract ourselves, use our five senses, help ourselves calm down, help ourselves get back into the present moment? Who can we call? Are there friends? And not call for therapy or help, but just call for distraction and for having a pleasurable experience and turning away from pain. What sort of things can we do as a family? Are there positive things like cooking, for example, that we could do together? And then what do we do if it gets worse? Are there crisis numbers we can call? Can we reach our therapist? Can we reach a mobile crisis unit? We should have all of that thought out when everyone is doing well. Another possibility is creating crisis kits where we put into a box some of our favorite things, some candies we like, some music we like, some soft feeling fabric or fur, some smells that we like, such as essential oils, that we bring out when we're starting to get upset to help ourselves calm down. If the family has a pet, doing something with a pet can also be helpful in the crisis planning. The point is to talk about all this way in advance and to write it down. And it also is an ongoing document because people learn things as they go along. They may discover other ways to manage difficult emotions that they didn't know about before, and those should be added to the crisis kit. And it's not just that you get the crisis plan out of this, it's that the process itself is helpful. It's helpful for people to become more self-aware by thinking about, well, when do I get upset and how will I notice it when it first starts to happen? And by trying different ways to manage it and find out which ones work and in what situations. Like kids, parents don't like to be always the ones that are taking, that are in need of help. Parents appreciate that they have strengths and they can also give. I heard of one parent center that offered a barter system where parents gave of their skills and they got what they needed. So if someone wanted computer training, they may have taught someone else to cook. Or if they happened to be good with repairs, they may have repaired someone else's home. And then meanwhile, a different person teaches them about the computer. And one of the things they could get was counseling, and another thing they could give was childcare while someone else was in counseling. So that was a whole system set up for that, but you don't have to go that far. But if your program can offer any ways that parents can give back and can be active in their own advocacy. For example, maybe there's a time when some of your clients can go with you to the legislature to advocate for some legislation that would be helpful for them, or could help make some decisions about the agency and what they're going to do next. Or maybe a parent or former parent could be a member of your board, or you could have a parent advisory group. All these things help the parent begin to feel that they have something to give, that they have some worth, and that they're not just a failure in life. I want to add one more thing here. That is, also add opportunities for fun in your program. Add times when the parent and child can have fun together. This applies to foster parents, to bio parents, whoever. Have picnics, have game days, have times when the parent maybe, if this is a group program of some kind, like a day program, have the parent teach other kids how to knit. Have a potluck dinner where people bring in foods from their culture. Remember, having fun together is the best and most important thing a family can do. And so rather than just telling them to do it, provide opportunities for that in your own program. Make sure that opportunities for fun and laughter are built into your program. Vicarious trauma is a part of all the work we do. And there's its own version of it in work with survivor parents. First of all, you can be affected as a treater by the survivor's history. The survivor's history can include pain and distress that is very upsetting for you. And then you can feel overwhelmed and sad for the parent's current distress, current problems. For example, what if the parent doesn't have any food? You can feel really heart-wrenched, and why do I feel like, well, maybe I should just give her some money for food. Then, of course, the parent's adaptations and ways of handling things may end up being hard on you. Like the parent might yell at you, or be overly suspicious, or push you away, or somehow feel like you're trying to take their child from them, or make their child like you more than them. All these things you have to manage the emotions of. But there's another layer to working with parents, in that you are aware that everything you're doing with a parent has an effect on the child, and that if you're not able to help the parent, the child may be more at risk. So that can give you an extra sense of pressure, a sense that the child is depending on you to help their parents, in effect. However, we really have only so much influence. There's only so much we can do. We can care for the parent, treat them with respect and compassion. We can't make them be different. And sometimes we don't even know the effects of what we're doing. We may not feel like we've done anything, and then meet that parent years later and they tell you how you changed their life. There's so much. We can do our very best and look at people with compassion and connect with them with an open heart, but we only can do what we can do. And our influence is one person in a system, and a system that many people may interact with this parent. Of course, that can also be some of the sources of some of our stress, because the system itself has so many problems, and oftentimes the help that we want to get for parents isn't available, which can also increase our stress. So because there's these multiple strands of vicarious traumatization in working with parents, it's really important that we have support, have supervision, talk regularly about how the work is affecting us, and that at our work we ourselves are treated with respect and compassion, the same way that we hope to treat our parents. Furthermore, that in our personal lives we don't lose track of what gives us joy, and that we make sure and connect with the people, systems, and activities that restore us, that will help us have the energy, the hope, the stamina to offer a caring relationship to the parents.